Hey, 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 and welcome back to the Fully Booked Photographer. And we've gone from two last week to three this week. So Jeanine is back. She's had a busy time with a whole load of new team members in her team and training them coming into the busy season. But it's great to have you back, Jeanine. But Brad is still in Orlando somewhere. He's probably on Space Mountain or somewhere like that, I guess.
Taking Mickey Mouse's hand somewhere.
Yeah. I saw a photo on his social media feed the other day of the two of them, himself and Ruth, in front of the castle holding a sign. Did you see that?
I did see that. It was really cute.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So we're back to the guys this week to talk about one of our favorite subjects. We sort of have a love-hate relationship with this subject because we talk about it a lot, but it never seems to go away. And that is the total confusion between what your marketing system is about, what your sales system is about, and the fact of the confusion in it. And you know what? We thought this was just in our industry. And then Jonathan was reading a book on the plane out to Spain, and he came across a really interesting line from one of the world's great business people. Jonathan, tell us what the line says. Read it to us.
Yeah, so it's quite fascinating because when you see this in our members, you kind of like, wow, that's what we experience too. So the little short paragraph, let me read it out to you. You have to sell stuff to make money. It seems simple enough, but everyone tries to skip to the make money part. It doesn't work. I tried. You need all the pieces. You need the stuff to sell, an offer. You need people to sell it to, leads. Then you got to get those people to buy it, sales. Once you put all those in place, then you can make money. And it's something that we see in the Fully Booked Photographer, even from some of our, longest established Inner Hive members, is that when they're running their ads, and they're using offers, because we teach everyone to use offers to attract people who share the same characteristics as their ideal clients. And they think that everyone they attract or those leads are ready to buy right now and they're going to invest, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 in photography. And at that moment, we're just like facepalm. Going, because it's a process. You have to think about your client journey, and it's great that we have the queen of the client journey with us today, Queen Jeanine.
Queen
because
Jeanine, that's a good rhyme.
You don't go from like making someone who's blissfully unaware you exist to them investing 5,000 with you today. That doesn't happen in any business. It's not magic. Like that paragraph says, you need all the pieces, and without all the pieces, you're not going to make money. So stop skipping to the want to make money part. Put in that little bit of work and implement all steps of the client journey. And that starts with your marketing.
Well, I'm glad Jonathan read that today because it really fits well into what we're talking about. Because I think what we hear so much when we're doing our coaching calls and our mentor calls with our members is that they don't understand the purpose of marketing. I really don't think they understand it. And the purpose of marketing is to build awareness. It's to get people to enter into your world, to make them realize you even exist, and then to pique their interest that maybe you have something that they want or need. That's it. That's really all marketing. I mean, if you boil it down, that's what marketing is. And while marketing and sales are closely related, they're not the same thing, because your marketing is never going to actually sell. I mean, I guess it could in a very rare instance if so, but let's just talking in broad general strokes as you're trying to create your client journey and trying to add all these three things in to get a sale at the end. Your marketing is out there to get the general public to realize who you are, what you have to offer, and to pique an interest that someone might want to inquire and find out what it is that you could do for them. The sales comes later, and that's when you close the deal. That's when you talk to your client afterwards about making the purchase. So there are two distinctly different steps in the process.
And Jeanine, I know you're going to give us an example from the real world just to go through this, like what's happening soon. But when I trained to be a story brand guide in 2019, and we were training with Donald Miller, and Donald Miller talked about this in the same way as, like, if you saw a woman who you found massively attractive across the street, you wouldn't walk straight over, go on a knee and say, will you marry me? You know, you wouldn't, because you'd get a bag across the head, right? And it's the same thing here, but for some reason, we think that when we market, that everyone who raises their hand up, you know, to know a bit more, are ready to marry you, and they're not. You have to date them. They want to get to know you a little bit better. You know, they got to understand, you know, how their life is going to be better by spending time with you and investing their money with you. You know, it's fun. I don't know where it's come from. It's funny. I always ask, like, why do people think that way, or what is it that causes people to think that way? And is it that everyone's looking for a silver bullet and want it to happen quickly, or what the drivers are? But we're not going to talk about that now anyway. Let's tell us about the cars, Jeanine, because you were saying that cars are a great example, because it's an industry that's around a long time, and they've probably been through most of this and figured out what the difference is between marketing and sales.
Yeah, and I just thought it was a really good analogy when we were chatting this morning. So, you know, especially coming into right now, about a month in the US anyways, all the car commercials start on TV and on the radio. And it's all about, you know, what are you going to buy this year for a Christmas gift? And it's, you know, they have these very scenic, snowy photograph, you know, snowy scenes with a car in the driveway with a big red ribbon, and it's snowing, and the wife opens the window and she, oh, look, I got a Lexus for Christmas, or, you know, or whatever the case may be. And it's, you know, the big hugs and the big emotional, you know, overtures of everything that's happened because this person got a Lexus for Christmas. But all the car commercials and companies do this around the holidays. And it's, you know, the big car with the big red bow and snowing. I guess they assume it snows everywhere at Christmas. They don't realize that people living in Florida just have palm trees, but that's okay. The idea is still there. And it's, you know, that it piques your interest, you know, it makes you start thinking about, would a car make a good Christmas gift for my spouse, my partner, even my child? Is my child turning 16, 17, and do they need a car? Would that be a good Christmas gift? And like, who in my family might want a car for Christmas? And so, you know, it might not have been something they were thinking about before. Although I think, you know, even if people kind of know that the car commercials start around the holidays, until you're actually in that place of this might be something that you're in a period of your life where you might be going, you might not think about it until you see the commercial. But regardless, that commercial is meant to make people think about what they're going to do at the holidays for Christmas with the possibility of purchasing a car. That's all it's doing. It's not actually selling the car, right? It's just making people aware that, hey, did you know you could buy a car for somebody for Christmas? Maybe even for yourself, right? That's the marketing, and the car companies do it brilliantly. The jewelry companies do it brilliantly too, you know, like what do you know? And so it's all the marketing and advertising around getting people to think about purchasing this product or service for a gift. Then the next, you're opening.
Before you go to the sales piece stuff. So Jonathan mentioned in his line, right, from the book about an offer. So, like, what is their offer in the marketing, in the advert?
So usually the ones I've seen are more like, 0% financing, or, and they are always funny, big red bow not included. You know, it's quite amusing because I've actually purchased a car around the holidays and you have to pay $250 for that big red bow. But anyways, I digress. It's usually around financing. So like you can come in and do 0% financing or a very low interest rate or something like that. So it's usually around buying it with a lesser cost in your financing. So that way it's almost like getting free money to finance your car.
And are they presenting in the marketing a transformation of some kind? Like, is the wife absolutely thrilled with the partner, or? Yeah,
that's usually what it is, right? Like, she's like, oh my goodness. And then she runs up and gives him a big hug and they twirl around in front of the car. And it's like this overjoy, oh, you know, he loves me so much, he bought me a car type thing. That's, jumping for joy. It's usually celebratory, jumping for joy, hugging, twirling around, things like that.
So what's the call to action on the ads?
The call to action is time. It's you have to, this deal ends December 24th or something like that. Or the deal ends at the end of the year. And so hurry up now before the deal ends or all the cars are gone type thing. But it's usually a time bound.
But is the call to action to visit at one of our stores or?
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant what was the, the call to action is just, actually, no, they don't. It might at the very end put the names of the local dealerships. I'd have to go back and specifically look, to know exactly what they do, but they usually say visit your local Lexus dealership or visit your local Mercedes dealership, before the end of the month or something like that.
Or book a test drive now or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very similar to the ads you run in your photography business, Jeanine. You run a Facebook ad with an offer, with a call to action to get them to sign up to become a lead.
Yes, exactly. It's very similar. And so, what we're doing is we're putting an offer out there to build awareness to, hey, look, here we are. Here's an idea of something you can do for your family, for your children, and fill this form out and we'll get in touch with you. It's a little bit, there's that added thing as opposed to walking into a store, right? It's fill this out and we'll contact you. And so, but it is the same concept of building the awareness with an ad and then having the person reaching out so that you can get in contact with them.
And at that point in time, if you think about it, every single person, let's say, I don't know, let's just take an easy number, 1,000 people watch that commercial. 1,000 people aren't going to be buying a Lexus. Right. It's part of the same thing with photography, with the ads we run on Facebook. If 1,000 people see our ads, then I don't know, we might convert 20%, 200 of those 1,000 into leads. And the same with the car people, they run their ad, 1,000 people see it, they might get 200 people to show up to the dealership, or to book a test drive or whatever the call to action might be. And of those 200 that show up to the dealership, Jeanine, they're not all going to invest in a brand new Lexus or whatever car it is, are they?
No, they are not.
So the next step then is they turn up to the dealership, right? So let's say they turn up to the dealership. So this is the start of the sales process, right? Where I'm going to go and talk to somebody in the dealership about the car. And when I meet that person, they're going to say to me, right, before we talk about which car you might like, we need to sit you down and we need to run a credit check to make sure you're approved for the money, right?
That is not what they do, Ronan. They don't even go there first. You're so clever in the way you ask questions. No, they talk to you first about why you're here, So what brings you to the dealership today? What are we celebrating? What are you looking to buy a car for yourself, for somebody else? They ask you those questions to figure out why you're there, what it is that they need to look at fitting you with a car, and what is your desire? What is it that emotionally ties you to making a purchase with that car today?
So they don't ask you, do you want a 6 liter or a 5 liter or a 4 liter?
No, they don't go technical on the car at all.
Interesting. So if we imagined a photography business being a dealership like this, properly trained, and I went and this dealership was a photography business, right? And I went in, they're not going to ask me what way I want to be photographed.
No, they would not.
Okay. But that's what a lot of photographers say.
It is what a lot of photographers say, and a lot of photographers jump right to investment as well. They jump right to product, they jump right to investment and skip over the discussion about their desires.
Okay. So talk to us about that then. So let's say, well, talk to us in your opinion, Jeanine, from what you've seen, like when the car dealership person, the salesperson in the dealership interacts with the client who walks through the door, what are they trying to do and discover?
Well, the last time I purchased a car, the salesman was trying to discover why I was there, why I wanted the car now, and what my needs were. And as soon as and so it's interesting. I think they're very good car salespeople. And I think it's why people have a love-hate relationship with buying cars, because they, and it's probably why some people might have a love-hate relationship with sales, because they think of cars and the process of purchasing cars. But I tell you, if you go to a luxury car dealership, and actually I've encouraged a lot of photographers to do this, even if they're not intending to purchase a car, to go through the process of going into a luxury car dealership and going through that process, because it's very interesting, the questions they ask, how they treat you, how they find out what your emotional connection is, and how they can tie that emotional need to a car. So let's say, for example, I had said I needed to, I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby or something like that. Then they would automatically start talking about safety and, what kind of cars could fit a car seat, and, to get that mother to think about, oh yeah, I need a safe car with my child, because as a mother, your first instinct is to protect your baby at all costs, and to also have easy things in there for to be able to do car seats and things like that. And so you're not going to buy a 2-seater sports car, right? They're not going to show you that. They're going to show you a car that's meant to carry children. And then they're going to use words that tie that into, this is the perfect family vehicle. This car can grow with you as your child gets older. And they'll keep tying it back to you and your children. You and your children. This is a safe car for you and your family. And they know all those words that go to the hidden desire of their target client, which would be very different than if I was, a man in my 40s who says obviously, wants a sports car to show off whatever, they're going to then talk about, they're going to talk about very different things. They're not going to talk about safety and family vehicles. They're going to talk about all the elements of what buying a sports car will do for your ego and your mind. So, they're very good, but they got to find out first. They're not going to go jump right to that. They have to ask you the questions first, because you could be a man in your 40s going in there because you're wanting to buy a car for your wife with your 4 children, and they need to show you an SUV, or they need to show you a minivan. And so they need to find those questions out, or they're going to be showing the wrong car to the wrong person, and they're not going to make that emotional connection. The person's going to walk out of the dealership. But once they tie you emotionally to that car, it's really hard to leave, because you can't see yourself in any other car. Actually, so I'll give you a funny example. And this one just popped in my mind, because I remember my parents telling this story about how my mom ended up with her first Mercedes. So my dad was trying to impress her when they had first gotten married to buy a car for her. And he tells the story, and I don't remember what all of the cars were, but he says, I took Mary Lou to this car dealership, and they said, let's just say it was Ford. And they said, this Ford is the Cadillac of Fords. And my dad's like, oh, so I should be buying a Cadillac. So he leaves the Ford dealership and goes to the Chevy dealership he's like, show me your best Cadillac. And that salesperson said, this Cadillac is I don't know, give me another car brand. I'm not a car person. The BMW of Cadillacs or whatever. And my dad's like, well, then I want the BMW. I don't want the Cadillac. So he leaves that car dealership, goes to the BMW dealership, and they say, this is the Mercedes of all BMWs. And he's like, well, then clearly I don't want that either. He ends up at the Mercedes dealership, and that car salesman said, this is the perfect car for your wife because of all these things that you had said to me. And my dad's like, sold. Because he didn't compare it to another car. He didn't say it's better than this. He didn't say it was that. He listened to me, talked to me about what I was wanting to buy for your mother, and sold me that car. Like, I then was emotionally tied. This was the best car I could possibly buy for my wife, and that's what I did. And so I thought that was a very interesting one too, like the bad way to sell. Like, why would you ever compare your, it's just so funny. But it's good sales and bad sales all happen, but it's all the sales. The marketing, like, I'm sure there were great ads that got him to go to that first dealership, but then the salesman screwed it up. He didn't properly sell my dad on that car.
And is that where they're connected? in terms of you need your marketing, your sales to be connected, in terms of that you understand both systems, if you want to call it that, that they're interrelated, but they're interdependent. Because I'm sure the salesperson who didn't sell the car, the first one, didn't turn around and say, oh my gosh, that commercial is terrible. Marketing have done a total crazy ad that has brought all these people into me who are not interested in buying the cars we have for sale.
So no, I don't think so, Ronan. I think in a car situation, if a salesman doesn't make the sale, he's going to sit there with his team and they're going to figure out why they didn't make the sale. What went wrong in the sales process? They're not going to be like, oh, that was a crappy commercial they ran on TV. They sent me a bad lead, or they sent bad people in. We're getting a flood of people into the car dealership that don't know what that clearly aren't our clients. That's not what's happening. They have their sales meetings, they have their team meetings, and they're discussing about how they can better work on their sales as salesmen to sell those cars.
Interesting, isn't it, Jonathan?
It is interesting, but I think there's a lot of lessons in it and a lot of similarities. So from Jeanine's story, she was talking about with her dad's experience that the first few salespeople were very product focused and talking about the product, whereas the last person, the person he bought the car from, the salesperson was talking about the client's needs, why they need it, why they want it, why they desire it, what problem it's solving for them. But I think unless we clarify, that could be tricky for photographers, because we have to understand as photographers what problem our photography solves. Because otherwise, they're going to be asking questions like Jeanine mentioned earlier. What way do you want to be posed? Why do you want to be posed like this? Why do you want this album? And it's not... It's still talking about product. So I think it's important that that point is differentiated.
It's that whole discussion around features versus benefits, right? That if you focus on the features, people just going, yeah, and that's what's happening with the first few dealerships that your dad went to. It was about, they were comparing the features of the car in a way, then say, well, this is the BMW of Ford, or whatever, or Cadillac of Ford, or whatever the example was. So it was all while the Mercedes salesperson interacted to understand, what was the problem to be solved, why were they buying why did he want to buy the car now, who was it for, where is that person in their life, what will they need their car for. I'm sure like good salespeople say, well, what sports do you do, to find out, like, well, does the trunk or the boot need to be big enough to take golf clubs? And, understanding all those needs and desires, and many of them are hidden, right? That you need to deep dive to find out why they actually desire this car, And I'm sure part of your dad's reason for buying the car for your mum was just to show her, like, what she meant to him, and that the love he had for her, that he went and he bought a Mercedes, So and he may not have said that out loud, but that would have been probably his hidden desire, right?
Right.
So the salesman wouldn't necessarily have focused in on that, but probably got there eventually, when he discovered about who was foreign the wife and all that, and probably did talk to him about, imagine your wife's reaction when you present her this car. What is she going to think about you? I bet you he did, that it was built in there. But your dad might not necessarily remember that piece of the conversation, but that was probably the final clincher, the final clincher of the deal. So, lessons, eh? What are the lessons from this podcast?
Well, and I think you just said that, and then we can recap the lessons, is that the sale closed the deal. The marketing almost opens the awareness for the deal, and then the sale closes the deal. So they tie together, but they're exclusive. I mean, they're different processes. And I think we can, go in and recap the lessons learned. But, the first one's got to be people have got to understand that they're different. They're different. The marketing opens the doors and the sale closes the deal. And there's a journey in between the two. You have to take people on a journey. You have to find their hidden desires or their known desires. But Jonathan would always say you got to dig deeper and find out, what's truly driving their stated desires. And then once you make that connection for them and take them on the journey, the sale should almost be inevitable at the end with what we do.
If we focus on the right things. Right?
If we focus on the right things.
That we don't make it about their product and we don't make it about how you want to be photographed because they don't know. That's not their problem.
And when I say sale at the end, I meant like once they've come in for a session and then the sale of the actual portrait. Not necessarily that every phone conversation we have turns into a session.
Yes. So, so why do you think there's an expectation among many photographers we interact with that every lead that their marketing generates should be a sale?
I think for many, honestly, marketing to a cold audience is completely new to them. I think in the past, most photographers have gotten their leads through referrals, through repeat business, through friends and family, and built up organically that way. And now that we're in this world of being able to control our marketing and control the number of leads we get into our studio by advertising to a colder audience, it's foreign to them that someone they would get on the phone may or may not be their client because they've never had to do with that in the past. And so it's a new learned skill that they're having to understand that this is different. It's a cold lead. It's not a warm or a hot lead. And so it's not a cold call, right? You're not calling and talking to people who don't even know who you are and be like, who is this? But they are cold in the fact that they are not coming to you based upon them searching for you. They're coming to you because you made them aware of who you are with an ad. And now they're having to have conversations. And I also think it's, part of what we talked about in the last 2 podcasts ago now, that we've been taught as photographers that if you have amazing artwork and you have amazing photography, people will want it. And so when someone doesn't want it or someone doesn't want to pay for what you have, photographers are just dumbfounded. Like, what? It must be them, not me. Because I've worked so hard on perfecting my craft. So I think it's the combination of the two. And
your dad, when he bought the Mercedes, it wasn't that he wanted a Mercedes. He wanted the Mercedes for how it was going to make your mum and him feel.
Right. Exactly.
Jonathan, have you any last words of wisdom for us before we bring this podcast to a conclusion?
Stop looking for silver bullets and being lazy. Do the work. Here, stop using this excuse, I don't have time. You don't have time, what else are you doing? How else are you getting bookings and clients in? Come on, get your bum off the ground and stop making excuses.
As a photographer and an art person and also a science person, I think if people can look at sales and marketing as a craft as well and work on perfecting it just as much as they perfect their photography, they will grow to love it and understand it more.
Yeah, and it's the only way. It's the only way to create the income you desire from your photography business is consistency. You have to be consistently booked. Yep. Relying on other people to generate your leads for you in terms of referrals or alliances or all that, that will never be a solid foundation of business. You're going to have the roller coaster effect, as we call it, the ups and downs. And it's really hard to be profitable when you've got those ups and downs. We've got to try and take as many of those ups and downs out as possible. Right, Jeanine, and you've been on that journey, Jeanine. And when you get, actually I was listening to Tony Robbins today, and one of the words he mentions, we could call it consistency. He calls it momentum, which is the same thing. When you're consistent, you build a momentum, and things run smoother when you're consistently booked at the level you want to be booked. You don't have to stop. All right, so if you would like to know more about how you can become fully booked, just make sure to sign up for our AI-powered get fully booked challenge that you can sign up. You can come in and learn from these amazing mentors, along with Brad. Brad's amazing too, even though he's not here. And of course, make sure you press the subscribe button. And if you have friends out there who are other photographers who you know can also learn from this podcast, please do share it with them. So from me for now, see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
See you, everyone.